So we may also need to evaluate limits involving inverse hyperbolic functions. So para masagutan yung mga yon, we need to know the graphs of these functions. So ito yung kay sinh inverse at saka kay cos inverse x. So let's say, for example, we want to evaluate the limit of sinh inverse x as x approaches positive infinity. So looking at the graph, the answer should be equal to positive infinity. What if you evaluate the limit of sinh inverse x as x approaches negative infinity naman? So ang sagot should be equal to negative infinity. And then to the right, you have the graph of cos inverse x. So what if we are to evaluate yung limit ng cos inverse x as x approaches 1 from the right? So ang sagot ay equal to 0. So what if naman ang gusto mong evaluate ay limit ng cos inverse x as x approaches positive infinity? So again, from the graph, yung answer natin doon ay positive infinity. So here's the graph of tangent inverse x. So the limit of tangent inverse x as x approaches 1 from the left ay equal sa positive infinity. So what if you are to evaluate yung limit ng tangent inverse x as x approaches 0 from the right? So ang sagot ay 0. Here is the graph of cos inverse x. So what if we want to evaluate the limit of cos inverse x as x approaches negative 1 from the left? So nakatingin tayo doon sa kaliwa. So habang pumupunta ka kay negative 1, the y values approaches negative infinity. So what if naman limit of cos inverse x as x approaches positive infinity? Y values approach 0. So dito tayo kay sec inverse x at saka cosec inverse x. So the limit of sec inverse x as x approaches 1 from the left at ang limit ng cosec inverse x as x approaches negative infinity, meron kaya silang pagkakaparehas. So kay sec inverse, punta ka kay 1 from the left. Kay cosec inverse, punta ka kay negative infinity. So ang sagot kasi parehas equal to 0. What if evaluate the limit of sec inverse x as x approaches 0 from the right? So looking at the graph, diba yung y values natin nag-approach sa positive infinity. So again, the limit of sec inverse x as x approaches 0 from the right is positive infinity. So let's look at yung cosec inverse naman. What if we are to evaluate the limit of cosec inverse x as x approaches 0 from the left? So habang pumunta ka kay 0 from the left, the y values go to negative infinity. So yung sagot ulit natin, yung limit of cosec inverse x as x approaches 0 from the left is negative infinity.